Today we have a 2006 Chevy Impala with a 3.5. The customer says the left rear caliper is sticking, and that is on the driver's side. We're going to show you where that's located and how to replace it. Now we are on the driver's side rear, which is your left. You go to spin it, and they said it just drags a little. I would guess something's dragging. So we'll take that apart and show you how to take it off. First thing I do is take these 19s off. You can see the customer already did their own brakes. You got a newer rotor on here and new pads. So we're going to replace the caliper, which is right here. Break that loose. Okay. Now I bought a caliper, but of course it's got a core on it, so I have to return this old one. Take the bolt out, slide that over like that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is remove these two 14s on the back. One here, one right here. Break those loose. There's one on the bottom. Let's see here. Let's go on top then. Okay, I'm going to take a second, pull these pads out so those don't hit the ground. And it doesn't seem like it affected these too bad. And you want to take note that your squeaker was on the inside. Hopefully the guy did it right. We got your caliper bracket, of course. We got your caliper. I'm going to take this apart. I'm going to put my bracket back on, install my shoes, and then I'm going to put the caliper on it. And the last thing I'm going to do is take this line off of here and install it on this back side right here. And when you do this, you have to make sure that you have these little brass, one on the bottom and one on the outside, which I'll show you. Otherwise, it'll leak. When they give you a new caliper, of course, they give you a caliper bracket. I put the two bolts in, tighten that up. Next thing I'm going to do is install my pads. And you want to make sure that you just snap in there nice and easy. It has to go this easy. If you got to fight it, then it could stick too. That goes perfectly. That's how you want it to go on there. Now that we got the pads in there, everything's tight on the back, on the bracket. We're going to put some lube on this top one. You can tighten this one up ahead of time. And I'm going to put this like that. Make sure it's moving good. Just slide it right down over, and then just get my slide pin for the bottom, and the caliper will be installed. You can never put enough lube on it. Okay, now we're going to tighten that up. Just tighten this one up, and I'll check the top one again, but it should be good. Tight. Okay, last thing we gotta do is we gotta disconnect this line, put it on the new caliper, and then bleed the brakes. The brake line right here supplies the fluid to your caliper. Goes right here. We gotta install it over here. So what I'm gonna do is take an impact, pull that off, and then put those new brass washers on one side and one on the other side, then reinstall it and tighten it up. I like to use the impact on this, take it apart. You're going to lose a little fluid, so make sure you have a pan underneath. Just like that. Okay, you can see that little brass washer's there on that side, and there should be one on this side. It's still on the other. So if you hold your line up like that, it should not leak as much. And I'll get the other bolt and washers. The hose goes on here. Like I said, you got to have one of these on one side and one, it's hard to show you right there, on this side. So what I'm going to do is put it through here, put the washer on it, and then put that there and screw it in. Just start it finger tight there. Get my hand in there so I don't block the view too bad. It's got the brass washer on this side, and it's also got one on that side. And we're just going to tighten it up, and then we're going to bleed the brakes. I'm trying to keep my hand out of there so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and you also want to make sure that there's a little block that it goes up against so it can't pivot, which is pretty easy to do there, so you can see that. Okay, we got that line hooked up. You want to make sure there's no kinks or anything in it. It's how it's supposed to be from the factory. We're going to take this rubber off and we're going to bleed the brakes. Okay, usually you can either use a tool to do it. You have somebody in the car that would pump your brakes and hold it, and then you would release this and let the air out and then tighten it up and do it again. But a lot of times, if you don't have anybody here with you, you can just open this up and let it sit there, and hopefully it'll drip. If not, I'll have to get somebody in the car to push the brakes. A lot of times you can gravity feed it like that by just opening that bleeder valve, but for some reason it's not doing it today, so I got to get somebody to help me. Usually if you're bleeding the car, you do right rear, right front, left front. But since we just did that one caliper, I don't think there's a lot of air in the lines, so we're going to try to bleed just the left rear. We got plenty of fluid up here. I'm going to reinstall this, and then I'm going to get my helper to get in there and pump the brakes so I can bleed it. Holding. To the floor. Okay, pump it up. This pedal feels better.
Yeah.
3-4 pumps, ready? Hold it, ready? Let me know what's on the floor. Okay, one more time. Holding. Floor. Okay. This was a bleeder valve I was opening. Now you can see we got fluid on it. Just tighten that up. Last thing we do is put this little dust cover over it and reinstall the wheel. Started these by hand. Tighten it up. Always cross. And that's all it takes to replace a rear caliper on a 2006 Chevy Impala.